Good morning. Feels very good to be with all of you today in this space after what I hope was a restful Sunday. We are just 5 days away from departing for Thanksgiving vacation, which I have always considered the most important extended break in our school year. All of us have worked hard for over 2 months now, and a chance to pause for more than a day or two will do us some good. I've been planning for some time to present the F. Fessenden Wilder Endowed Chair and the Waldo Holcomb Chair on this day to two eminently deserving colleagues. I will still do that today with great enthusiasm and respect for the work these two colleagues do with all of you and with their colleagues. Mr. McVeigh and I have found our way to today's honorees by virtue of a process that invites faculty members to nominate other faculty members with thought as to why they feel their nominee is deserving of a chair. On the few occasions when I have enjoyed this privilege of presenting endowed chairs to colleagues in the past, I have drawn liberally from the words of faculty members inspired to write on behalf of one another at great length. I'm looking forward to doing that today, as occasions like this one allow us to celebrate great teaching, great coaching, great mentoring, and great care for students in ways that feel a bit more important to me today than they have at any other point in my life at Brooks. This thought brings me to other thoughts on my mind that I had not anticipated including in my remarks prior to this past week's presidential election. Among the many attributes that I think are great about our school, time together in chapel is perhaps the attribute I value most. It allows us to do things like celebrate great teaching and great teachers, as we will today. And it allows us to have a place to be together in the aftermath of moments that shake us. I do not intend to try to unpack an election that historians will be studying for generations to come. I do intend to think about our school within this still relatively new context and think about how we all go forward from here. Coincidentally, I happen to believe that celebrating great teaching in the midst of reminding ourselves about what we value and how we might move forward in even better form is fortuitous. There is no substitute for great teachers in moments that challenge us, and I feel blessed to work at a school so full of them. I shared with the faculty at the end of the past week that I felt bewildered and unsettled over the first few days following the election of Mr. Trump as this country's 45th president. While I feel a bit less of both this morning, these feelings linger for me, as they do for millions of Americans and people around the world, feeling some uncertainty about what the Trump administration will actually pursue once it takes office on January 20th of the coming year. I have busied myself thinking about our school and how we might move forward from here better than we have ever been before. To do so requires us to acknowledge and name some things, I think. First, there are members of this community who awoke on Wednesday morning following this election in pain and fearful of what a Trump presidency might mean. Second, there are members of this community who awoke on Wednesday morning excited about Mr. Trump's victory and enthusiastic about what a Trump presidency might mean. Third, there are members of this community who awoke on Wednesday morning not sure what to think or what to feel, and were awash in mixed emotions or no emotions at all. Finally, our school did not wake up on Wednesday morning any less committed to its values and to a number of positions that are directly opposed to positions expressed in this campaign. Our school did not wake up supporting bigotry. Our school did not wake up condoning misogyny. Our school did not wake up ridiculing the disabled. Our school did not wake up intent on targeting Muslims. Our school did not wake up demonizing the undocumented. Our school did not wake up eager to frighten the LGBTQ community. our school did not wake up questioning the competence of this country's generals. I do not believe that anywhere near all of Mr. Trump's supporters woke up holding these positions on Wednesday either. To demonize the more than 60 million who did vote for Mr. Trump, or to assume that the outcome of this election was driven entirely by forces holding all of these positions that are contrary to those we hold as a school, would do millions of people a terrible disservice. There is hate in this country, but there is far more despair than there is hate. And addressing that despair is where our energy ought to go. The people I know who supported Mr. Trump are good people. Within this climate, it is important that the feelings we woke up with on Wednesday and the school's positions that I have named and not named are all validated. As we go forward aiming to be our best and true selves, it matters that we work overtime to ensure that our actions encourage and allow others to be their best and true selves too. In an environment where descending into name-calling and demonizing has become sport, we must insist upon and work harder than ever before to ascend to a higher plane, to be better to and with one another than we have ever been before. I think we start by reminding ourselves of what we value at Brooks, to be actively kind to one another and considerate of others at all times, to be empathic in moments where we feel challenged or threatened, open palms instead of clenched fists, to aim for a level of decency at all times in ways that underline our responsibility to take care of fellow students and community members, to appreciate that civility and civil discourse are the way into engagement, and to resist whatever tugs us in other directions, to practice humility and always allow for the possibility that there might be a sound counterpoint to what you believe. We need to ask ourselves at all times, what am I doing to try to build bridges at a time when it feels like more and more are being burned? If you did wake up on Wednesday morning of last week fearful and in pain for reasons that are your own, know that your school wants to help you with that fear and pain. If you woke up on Wednesday morning excited about the election's outcome, but felt incapable of sharing your excitement for fear of offending another, know that your school wants to help you share that excitement thoughtfully. If you woke up in some other state on Wednesday morning, know that it is okay to be there if you still are. We can hold and honor all of this feeling, and we cannot accept anything less than that. We can ascend as a school in an uncertain time if we open our hearts, be patient and good to one another, and in the process, continue to earn one another's trust. In these ways, our differences enrich one another's lives and open doors for all of us to so much learning. I have drawn from the past to help me find inspiration in the present in a number of chapel talks I've given over the years. And I have been drawn to the words of President Lincoln over the past week. On March 4th, 1865, President Lincoln delivered his second inaugural address. I share what follows to illustrate how he ascended in the midst of the most divided period of time in American history. To give you some context, try to imagine getting elected in 1860 with just 39.8% of the popular vote, seeing 7 states secede from the Union during your transition to the White House, followed by 4 more once you were sworn in, accompanied by civil war breaking out just 1 month after you take office. You then lead the northern states into a bloody and horrific and protracted war that took the lives of well over 600,000 Americans, nearly half of all war deaths in American history. You get reelected in 1864. You know that victory will eventually come, but you don't know exactly when. And you begin to turn your attention to the enormous task of rebuilding a broken nation. You are surrounded by a range of angry voices seeking vengeance and wanting to punish the South in merciless fashion. You cannot help but understand this anger because you have been angry too. With all of this in mind, I read Lincoln's brief and somber second inaugural address, the words of an exhausted and emotionally drained president. And somehow, they ring of decency, humility, kindness, civility, and empathy in ways that take my breath away. He closed this extraordinary address with these words that will always be in my head when seeking a route to reconciliation, and I quote, "With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and for his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations." End quote. If we can find ways to draw upon what was best about Lincoln, we can ascend at a point in time when doing so might feel more difficult than ever. To move forward with malice toward none, with charity for all, would be a good start within the context we are now in. This brings me to today's Endowed Chair recipients, and I would like to begin by pausing for a moment to identify the four current Endowed Chair holders. They are: Miles J. Richard holds the Richard F. Holmes Chair, was appointed to the faculty in 1978. Douglas G. Burbank holds the Hope H. Van Buren Endowed Chair, was appointed to the faculty in 1986. Lee P. Perkins holds the Prince Charitable Trust Chair and was appointed to the faculty in 1998. Deborah R. Davies holds the Independence Foundation Chair and was appointed to the faculty in 2000. I noted earlier the good fortune we have to be celebrating great teaching at a point in time when great teaching has never felt more important to me. I'm also struck by the degree to which today's honorees live the values I have spent some time exploring this morning. These two teachers have reached students and colleagues throughout their entire adult lives in ways that demand decency, in ways that ooze humility, in ways that are rooted in kindness, in ways that are always civil, and in ways that reveal an embedded commitment to being empathic in everything they do. They are good listeners, deep thinkers, and demanding and patient with their colleagues and students all at the same time. They are the sort of master teachers that students recall for the rest of their lives. Their lessons within and beyond their respective disciplines reverberate in ways that are profoundly meaningful to those who are fortunate enough to spend time with them. Indeed, as we seek to provide the most meaningful educational experience our students will have in their lives, these two colleagues are meaning delivery engines of the highest order. Of today's F. Fessenden Wilder Endowed Chair recipient, his colleagues shared the following, and I quote, "I strive to embrace his quiet confidence, creativity, and tenacity in my own teaching every time I enter the classroom. He listens far more than he speaks. In the safe space he creates for all to bring their full selves forth is the evidence of his wisdom. He was born to be a reader, writer, and teacher of English, and I don't take lightly the honor and privilege it is to work with him, end quote. Another wrote, I particularly appreciate how he makes the space for students to create and gets them to create in his classes, in his winter term workshop, in student publication and performance. I further appreciate how he goes about it without fanfare, without looking for recognition, end quote. A third wrote, he is a master in the classroom of helping the most reticent kid find her voice. Hand in hand with the technical skills he imparts is a trust and a confidence he elicits from his students that they are safe with him and they can use these new tools to think about their lives if that's how they are moved, and so many of them are, end quote. Finally, one wrote, his students speak of his tremendous ability to exact the writer within them, even though they believed it did not exist. Clearly, he believes in every single one of them. They appreciate his non-threatening, discussion-based teaching style in the classroom, his love of the written word and words in general, and his ability to translate the awesomeness of this form of expression, end quote. Of today's Waldo Holcomb Chair recipient, the following thoughts stood out. He pushes us, I think, in the conversation about academic standards, in the classroom to do what we say we're doing, to challenge our students in ways that don't always come easily. There is a touch of old school in him, though it seems to me he's also pretty innovative and progressive. At least 2 members of the department are on record as saying he may be the smartest person in the world, end quote. A second wrote, he is the first person that I think deserves this honor for the simple fact that he lives and breathes Brooks School. The school is in his soul. He is an engaged teacher who challenges his students, pushing them to be their best. He has endless creativity that he uses to enrich his instruction. He also believes in the residential life of Brooks as a parent at Peabody. During our first dorm meeting last year, he gave an impassioned speech about how Peabody is a dorm that has a tradition of respect and appreciation for diversity, end quote. A third wrote, he has a ferocious intelligence, harnessed to deep commitment to teaching and to Brooks as a community. At a lunch table with colleagues, with kids in the Peabody Common Room, in the classroom or on the field, he models the life of the mind. And rather than choosing to use this gift for self, he'd be a terrifying trial lawyer. He deeply cares about sharing the world of ideas with high school kids, and they feel privileged to work with him, end quote. Finally, a group of students shared this when completing this year's Chipotle Challenge. We like the tree outside of the Science Forum because it is huge and we see it almost every day. We also agreed that it reminds us of this teacher due to its location and that we love the tree as much as we love him, end quote. For my own part, I would add 2 anecdotes and a thought. In the case of today's Wilder Chair recipient, I recall a note he sent to the whole school in the midst of a particularly charged moment in our year together last year. Without signaling his opinion of what he was commenting on, he made a compelling and thoughtful case for the right to make the point and the responsibility we have to engage in challenging dialogue. In the case of today's Holcomb Chair recipient, I was here earlier this fall when he spoke about the power of song in his life. It was as fine a chapel talk as I have ever heard. This was so because his profound love for students, for this school, and for meaningful connection to others was so real and palpably evident. As we move forward as a school at a time of considerable uneasiness in this country, I am moved by calls to work harder than ever, to have challenging dialogue in constructive and respectful ways, and am equally moved by the need to make clear our care for one another in ways these colleagues have. As a parent, I have considered my daughter blessed to be in their classrooms. As head of school, I look forward to what lies ahead, buoyed by their presence and certain of the difference they will make in an uncertain time. Thus, I'm honored, on behalf of my colleagues and the school, to invite forward to take their seats as the holders of the Waldo Holcomb Chair and the F. Fessenden Wilder Endowed Chair, Randall Aiden Hesse and Dean Patrick Charpentier. We're going to have a closing hymn and then a closing, and then there are refreshments for all of us in the Frick afterwards, where you'll have a chance to congratulate Mr. Hesse and Mr. Charpentier yourselves. Thank you.